Let's talk about the age-old question and why a Toyota can literally last forever and a Honda will not. Let's get into it now. Life's too short to drive boring cars. Everybody knows Hondas and Toyotas have had a stellar reputation. They're both built in Japan. There's a lot of attention to detail and pride on the line for the quality that these car makers are putting out there. But both car brands bring a different focus to the equation. Obviously, Honda's presence in Formula One indicates that they have a strong focus on performance and the drivetrain innovation, whereas Toyotas, on the other hand, are all about reputation, longevity, vehicles that go forever, low operating costs. Now, the unfortunate part, things have changed in recent years. Toyota isn't quite the same brand that they used to be. Honda isn't either. This is an older generation Honda from a generation where things were simpler. They lasted forever. They were cheap to run. Now we're into new Toyotas as well. And of course, they've added some complexities, different drivetrains. The quality control isn't quite what I've seen in previous vehicles. Now, of course, let's talk about that. So we will dive in depth for costs of ownership, maintenance, reliability concerns, the most reliable version of each and the worst reliable version of each one of these car brands. We're also going to share a cold startup of both of these vehicles. And as well, we're going to share you with the quality experience summarized between the Toyota and the Honda ASMR style. A big part of a vehicle's longevity clearly boils down to maintenance, or lack thereof. Any one of these vehicles, if they're poorly maintained, they'll fail very early on. But there's maintenance costs, and if people get to the point where they can't afford to maintain their vehicle, for example, we talk about a Mercedes and people sometimes can't ante up for the dollars. Once these things are 5 or 6 years of age, they start running out of steam and money and resources, and then they give up. But that's a big reason why these two car brands will last for a long time. Honda's very affordably priced in terms of maintenance. Shop rates are low, parts are low cost, and replacement of parts are often very, very simple because the car is not packaged in such a way that's overly complex. Toyota, on the other hand, is a very simpler stature. Parts are relatively low cost. The vehicle is relatively simply designed. In other words, most of these vehicles are front engine, transaxle, so they're front wheel drive by default, and that reduces some of the extra hardware that you get, for example, on a rear wheel drive vehicle like that. So maintenance costs, for example, are super low. Hondas on average in the first 10 years of their life take only about $7,500 to maintain in that lifespan. It is literally one of the lowest cost vehicles of all time to keep on the road. The Toyota, on the other hand, is literally the cheapest vehicle to keep on the road for 10 years. Let's not forget, many vehicles from Dodge and GM won't even make 10 years. But this vehicle will not only make 10 years, it's literally the lowest cost of vehicle to operate for a 10-year span, and we're talking about $6,000 for that duration. Let's look under the hood of these two fine vehicles. First the Honda, and let's take a look and understand why these vehicles are so cheap to maintain. I mean, very simplistic. If you look across here, everything's accessible. O2 sensor, very simple to get at. EGR valve, very simple to fix and replace, and you can even clean those manually. Battery, easy swap out. Air filter, easy swap out. Brake fluid, easy access. We even got a fuse block there. Now we have to deal with timing gear. It's right there. It's quite simple. This vehicle is made for simplicity. Even the spark plugs and wires are very accessible. Just undo those two bolts and you're good to go. Lots of metal from an era where these cars are still relatively well made. Simple, effective, and low cost to run. Even small brakes like that make it very affordable. You can do a full set of brakes on this car for about $600. Discs, pads, fluid, and the works. Then we look at the new Toyota. Right here, slightly bigger brakes, still relatively low cost. On the back as on the front as well, so those are low cost to service. But now we're talking about a 2022 Toyota right here, and things are quite different. You'll notice, sure, you still have an accessible battery, you still have brake fluid that's easy to access and fuse block. You'll notice the theme is very similar between the Toyota and the Honda, making them very uniquely accessible and easy to maintain. There is a slight increase in the use of plastics, you'll notice right here, but overall it's still a very simplistic setup. This is naturally aspirated. In other words, there's no turbos. We have a simple 4-cylinder engine there, 2.5 liters of displacement. It makes about 200 horsepower. It's very simple, effective, and is made to run forever. It's not overly strained. It's a great runner. And then the Honda, on the other hand, because this is an older generation Honda, this is also naturally aspirated. No turbos. And because it has no turbos, it's also likely going to run for a long, long time as long as you keep doing your oil services. Both cars also keep things relatively simple with the use of mechanical water pumps on both these vehicles. And a lot of brands like BMW have experimented with electric water pumps. Now they combine those in the same proximity as the turbochargers, and they had a recipe for water pumps that just failed in short order. That is not the case with these Toyotas. Keep it simple, right? So they have mechanical water pumps. The cooling system is very simply made, as opposed to Mercedes and BMW's overly complex snap-in hose type fitting arrangement like this. Look at those mechanical parts. You've got the snap ring, you've got these keyed fittings. They look great. But this is a $200 hose. Why do we possibly need to pay $200 for a rad hose like this? Beats me. But instead, Toyotas like this, including Hondas like that, all do simple things. Little rubber hoses with simple clamps like this. Other simple little hoses with clamps that are constant tension that never let go. And that's the reason they last so long. You don't have to find yourself changing hoses, clamps, and you don't get leaks in weird, awkward spots. Same thing with a Honda right here. You'll notice the same type of clamp right there on that coolant hose. So they keep it simple. Everything's mechanical, everything's simple, everything is also low cost with those simple rubber hoses and clamps. Keep it simple, right? Both car brands stand by their products. So they both offer up a 5-year, 60,000-mile warranty for engine and transmission, and they're generally pretty good for it. Now, things have changed in the last few years. When you're talking about overall reliability, did you realize now Toyota is at the top pop? They're usually around number 2 or 3. They're always swapping punches with Lexus, which is their upscale luxury version brand, and also Mazda, which currently holds a number 1 slot on Consumers Reports. Honda, on the other hand, falls way down the list. It's not even a number 3rd or 4th slot. It's actually quite far down. But overall, the Honda reputation for reliability is still there. The problem is, reason why it took such a brutal hit in recent years isn't because of cars like this with the naturally aspirated 4-bangers. It's because of what they're doing in recent years. And no, it's not the hybrid, because both vehicles have hybrid versions of all their models, and they're generally pretty solid. The problem is, they've had some transmission issues, and they've also had some significant problems with that 1.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder engine. Now, yes, I know there's been some rectification of some of those issues, but the problem is it was such a compromise to their overall durability and reliability, as well as reputation, that a lot of people decided to give up on the brand. And a lot of those vehicles spent a lot of time in the shop. So unfortunately, that one engine was enough to really hurt Honda's overall reputation. Now, clearly, Toyota is big on not changing. Don't fix what's not broken. Clearly, certain engines, the staple of naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engines, as well as a 3.5-liter V6, are staples of their rigidity and reliability. So that's why Toyota isn't a big fan of changing things all that much. Whereas Honda is big on innovation, and it's that very innovation that sometimes hurts things. BMW, classic example. Mercedes, another example of a car brand that gets very innovative, but reliability takes a back seat because they're trying things, and things sometimes fall off the rails. So contrary to popular belief, Toyotas are not perfect. That's right, they have had a few issues. And specifically the worst model years 2007, 8, and 9 are ones that you grossly want to run away from. There was too many issues there. But a lot of Toyota Camrys are on the top list of some of the most problematic Toyotas. Let's talk about a few of the issues that they've seen. Of course, the sudden acceleration issue that some of the cars had because of the floor mats, transmission issues, faulty brake issues. A lot of times the brakes and the suspension get a little loose and they get clunky and squeaky. A lot of Toyotas are known for that. That is a common issue. Fuel pump problems. We all know about that recent fuel pump recall, as well as water pump failures. Good thing they're a simple one to fix, but water pumps have been known to fail on these vehicles, as is oil buildup in the engine. Too much sludge and oil formation in these engines is commonly known. As well as the air conditioning system has been known for mold growth. And there's other issues that you can find with these Toyotas too. Pop the door, and right here they talk about some of the power door locks are issues, some of these vehicles. The rear window has been known to be a problem as well, not heating. And even this car here is brand new, and all of a sudden the stereo system right here basically stopped functioning. It would light up, all the display was there, but no music was coming out of the speakers. So clearly this thing crapped the bed. And this is a brand new car with 5,000 kilometers on it. Not only that, the tire pressure monitoring system's a little fidgety and a little oversensitive on this car too. So clearly, with only 5K on it, it's shown already that it's not perfect. With that said, Consumers Reports Repair Pal overall ranked this vehicle at 4.0 out of 5.0 in terms of overall reliability. Now, fortunately, Camrys only cost about $388 per year to service, which in fact does allow them to keep running it over and over and over, and people are not scared to throw $400 at a car on an annual basis. Now, with of course all of that said, Toyota is still an ultra reliable brand, and if there's a brand you had to recommend to somebody on a limited income, that's probably a car that you want to recommend because it's going to cost you the least amount of repairs and unexpected ugly breakdowns to fix. Now the Honda, on the other hand, has its own series of problems, even more so in recent years, but let's talk about some of the common issues that you might experience with the Honda brands. Some vehicles are known for high oil consumption. Some vehicles as well, you can notice vibration when you're braking right there, but a lot of that has to do with the small brakes, and it doesn't take much to overheat them. Transmission failures, which you'll notice down in there have been known transmission issues with a lot of Honda products, as well as Acura as a whole. Also, power door lock issues with some of these cars. Dashboard displays with some of these Hondas as well have been a known issue, where they just stop working or they just start getting dim. Massive oil consumption with some engines. Now this one here is great, but as I mentioned already before, some of their V6 engines guzzle oil like it's going out of style, and that 1.5 liter Turbo 4 has an oil dilution as well with that engine. CV joints and axle boots are also a problem with some of these vehicles. And before we get into Honda in more detail, I just want to let you know down below there's a membership opportunity down there. We give you shout outs. We can also get into much deeper dives. If you have some questions, technical issues, we can get into a lot more detail for you and give you a lot more information on that. And it would be greatly appreciated if you could extend yourself and as well support the channel. So anyway, let's get into Honda and the whole conversation about some of the things that we find are problematic here and specifically some of the costs associated with running these cars. Now we're looking at a Honda Civic here, but let's just talk about some of the issues with the Honda Accords because that's clearly known as one of the more problematic cars, and we'll get into more detail. The 2003 to 2013 Honda Accords with the V6 engines use a lot of fuel. They're very thirsty. Transmissions are common failure points too for some of the Accords and all Hondas in general. Acuras also seem to follow suit, and there's many generations with transmissions that are weak and they tend to slip. Front brake rotors are warping and then they start causing vibrations. And that seems to be a bigger issue in the Accords, where the cars are typically a little heavier and the brakes are undersized. The dashboard lights start to go dim and burn out completely. And the locks on the doors tend to lock or unlock randomly, especially on a Honda Accord specifically. Even once you hit 100,000 miles, that seems to hit them especially hard. The Accord reported 1,984 issues and complaints by customers as reported by NHTSA. Clearly, not every single Honda is built the same. And so the average annual Honda Accord service cost tends to be around $400, which clearly is quite affordable. Now let's dive right into the Honda Civics, what we have right behind here. There are a lot of problems, but $368 is the average annual maintenance and service cost for Honda Civic, as opposed to $428 for the average for the Honda brand as a whole. So they are quite affordable and easy to run, but they've come with some significant issues along the way. Back in 2006, cracked engine blocks could lead to potential engine fire or leaking of coolant, and of course you've cracked an engine block, that basically means your engine's garbage. Throw it away. Off to the dumpster it goes. On top of that, brake rotors are also a potential failure, and of course, transmission issues are not uncommon in any Hondas, and the Civics are no different. Sun visors, cracks, yeah, that's been a known problem. Dashboards that get dim and weak and burn out. HVAC related issues. Door locks. Air conditioning compressor leak issues. Poor paint issues where it flakes and peels. Bluetooth connectivity on some of the earlier models as well is a problem. And we can't forget the infamous Takata airbags. That's part of a significant recall that impacts many brands. So the bottom line, to date, the most reliable Honda is the 2021 Honda HR-V, and the worst reliable Honda is the 2003 Honda Accord. In general, the Accord is probably the lowest ranking for reliability, and clearly some of the innovation now with the turbo 4-cylinder and hybrid engines means a larger chassis with a smaller drivetrain. It works harder, and there's just a little more technology than you're going to typically find. So when you're talking about longevity, which will last longer, the Honda or the Toyota? In general, Honda typically tries to run with more high-strung engines. Look at the new Honda Civic Type R, 300 horsepower. It is a beast, for sure, a track car. Now, it's not a dedicated sports car, but it runs like one. It actually runs as good as many exotic cars on the racetrack. So Honda's always pushing themselves on the drivetrains. 1.5 liter turbo 4-cylinder engine, we know that's a really small engine working hard with a turbo. They're trying to be innovative. They're trying to push the limits, where Toyota sticks with a little bit more what they know. And I know some were going to argue the GR models. Of course, the latest and greatest Corolla GR is amazing hot rod, but but that's just new. Time will tell whether that's reliable. For now, the Toyota Supra is a BMW-derived beast, so is the 86. So at the end of the day, those cars aren't truly a representation of the Toyota reliability. As a whole, which will run longer, Toyota or Honda? Before I summarize which one's going to run forever and the other one not, let's get into the quality experience of both the Honda and Toyota. Let's start with the cold starts and then do the ASMR quality experience you're going to love. Let's get into it. Cold start Toyota first. And then the Honda cold start now. Now, as you can tell, it's very, very cold out here. It's minus 20 degrees Celsius, and they both sounded like they were running like champs. No weird noises, no strange anomalies, no bad smoke. They just ran and started really, really well. So no particular issues with either Toyota or Honda. But if I can summarize which one will run forever, well, the Honda for sure, as I mentioned before, is very innovative with their technology performance, and they take a little bit less pride in the overall reliability, but they value a little bit more innovation, whereas Toyota just sticks with what they know, tried and true, and sticks with vehicles that are trying to get the longest lifespan out of them. So that's the bottom line. And with all of that said, be sure to check out that video. You're going to love it, where I compare a Mercedes to a Toyota in terms of the overall reliability and why, in fact, a Toyota does run a lot longer. Hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.